Good morning, New Eden! Today is November 10th, 2021, and welcome to the Federation Frontline Report, a podcast about EVE Online with a focus on interviewing the EVE Online players as well as faction warfare news. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout, and today we have a very special guest, Vilksun, a member of the Empyrean Edict, and he's part of the Amar Warzone, so glad to have him on the show. How are you doing, Vilksun?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's great to have somebody from the Amar Warzone coming over again. Always enjoy hearing the other side of the tale of faction warfare. So just kind of starting off here, what was it that really got you started playing EVE?
Yeah, so, gosh, probably like the year I graduated high school, which was like 2009. I was really into MMOs, and I saw this space game, and I was like, "Ooh, sci-fi space game, that looks good." And like a lot of people, I installed a trial, and I undocked, shot Concord, died, and I was like, "What the hell is this game? What am I supposed to do?" Right? And so I probably put it down like 10 times before I finally got into a ship, started like PvE mission running, like level 1 missions in I don't even know, like a Rifter or something, and just not really knowing what was going on. And eventually, I met some guy. I remember thinking, I'm going to need some help. Like, I need to find people to play with, but I didn't know what to do. And so this one guy kind of took me under his wing for a little bit, and he would bring a battleship to run level 4, and I would still be in like a destroyer, and I'd be like, "Whoa, man, that's crazy! I'll never be able to afford that battleship."
Oh, I remember so often just pointing at stuff on the screen and being like, "That's gonna be my ship someday, and that's gonna be my ship someday." And oh my god, look at the Megatron! Oh my god, it looks so pretty.
Right, that sense of awe and kind of wonder you have as a new bro.
Yeah, and I did the same thing,
right?
where I just was in it. I started the beta test in 2003 when it was just as I was in my high school. No, I just had gotten out of high school, and I was like, what the heck is this game? I don't understand what's going on here. So I just dropped it, and then over the years I picked it back up again in 2005, and then 2006 is when it finally stuck for me. But yeah, EVE is one of those games where you just gotta keep on trucking, just keep on trying.
It takes a level of perseverance just to get into EVE. That's definitely a hurdle that EVE has, And I've taken my long breaks too over the years, but I will say that faction warfare is what has kept me playing the game.
So when you started playing, faction warfare had already been around, actually.
Yeah, absolutely, but I had no idea anything about it. I was into PvP in World of Warcraft a lot, back in those days. So I was really interested in the EVE PvP, but it's such a huge kind of leap from the PvE content to the PvP content, and especially in EVE where there's so many people just ready to stomp your face in.
Yeah, you don't have the arena zone, that gets you started.
It's not instanced, and it's not fair.
Which they kind of have now, which is kind of interesting. I kind of like the Proving Grounds, which is interesting. Hopefully that helps with getting people into PvP to a certain degree, but yeah,
I'm not sure too how successful that is because of, I think they have way too many events that are expensive to do. It's not a ton of consistent, cheap instance PvP. That's been my perspective, because I've tried a couple of the Proving Grounds, and I maybe I'm addicted now to the sort of free form template of PvP and EVE, but the instance PvP did not do it for me at all. Yeah, even though in other games I like it.
The only thing I like in the instance PvP is the free-for-all ones, where it's just everybody jump into a frigate and just start shooting each other, and it's okay, I'll get some kill nails from this. Let's do this.
I don't know if you're flashy in game, but
I am.
All of our guys are flashy, so we did some free-for-all, and we observed. Maybe we're crazy, but we observed that we were the only flashy people in there, and that we were getting stomped on. because people see us flashing and they're like, "Oh God, those guys are dangerous. Kill those guys." And it's like, no, no, no. We're just normal people. Please, don't kill us first.
I kind of got that feeling a little bit, but yeah, it's an interesting thing when you just jump into a free for all, and it's just, yeah, it's hard to tell whether you're being targeted or not sometimes in those free for alls. But I haven't done too much with it either, and it was, it's just it's it's not as fun. I have
Yeah.
to say, it really is just
Options
like
are
only,
great. Options are great. But
yeah,
but the Eve PvP is unique, and it's what the game exists for, right? The game would not exist if it wasn't for the open sandbox PvP. That's what the game's about.
absolutely. And yeah, even with a lot of people are like, well, if they had instance PvP, nobody would do regular PvP. And you see that's absolutely not the
Yeah,
case
it's
at
definitely
all.
not the case. Yeah, there's people that go hard on it, and even some very like competent. You see people like Blight's Wretch, who I don't know if you know him, but he's like a YouTuber and stuff. He would often be like doing those proving ground events and getting in the top, but he's still, he's out there still roaming around and stuff. So
Yeah,
I think
I feel like there's not as much of the heart poundingness that comes from, like, when I'm sitting in a Plex in a solo frigate and just waiting for that combat and I see something come on scanner, I'm like, oh, my heart just starts pounding. And I just don't get that really when I'm doing that instant PvP, because I'm kind of like already like
yeah.
I'm just looking for just a fight, and I just want
Well,
to die anyways, so
and you can just look at the kill board to find out the meta ship. Hop in
mhm.
the meta ship, and the funny thing is that when we did do that, the like second or third time we were doing some, I think it was destroyer proving ground, we hop in the meta ship and we just instantly have better success, and it's okay, but like you said, there's something about in the open world PvP where you're rewarded on a very personal level for your level of planning, and like there you can't plan for going into a free for all and just getting insta popped because everybody doesn't like the look of you. Like there's not a lot of risk versus reward there. It's just I got unlucky, and nobody really likes that. I think obviously getting unlucky. I got hot dropped today in my battleship for the first time in a long time, and it happens. You just get
Mhm.
unlucky, and nobody likes it, but it happens. But in the proving grounds, I feel like we were just getting that over and over. It's like, oh yeah, okay, we're primaried first, of course, great.
Yeah, no, that can be rough. It's just something that, especially when you experience that and you just keep on going back in to get like smashed, it is just like whereas at least in free for all, or in a free sandbox environment, you can kind of just go look for content elsewhere. You can catch that odd person here and there that'll give you some satisfaction that you got to catch some fish today. And
Right.
it can be really rough when you're just going into this like instance. So speaking of like getting into like free, a more sandboxy fighting stuff. So you said that what really caught you was faction warfare. How did you get into faction warfare?
So to give just a bit of context to start that off, I eventually went into null and was ratting hard, like in battleships, right? Like a lot of people do, just crabbing it up, dude. And that's how I made my first little bit of money. And I had tried going into a Marfac war. I was like one of those people, hop in, hop out, hop in, hop out, move some ships to high sec bordering and just fly Tristans around and die
Hmm.
constantly. And I was like, I just can't afford this to learn. Like this learning curve is too expensive for me. So I need money. So I joined this null group. I was in Providence. I was ratting and ratting and ratting and ratting and ratting. I made like, I don't know, 5 billion ISK. And then I ended up taking a break. And when I came back, I made an alt to station trade in Amar, like
Okay.
actual Amar, like the system.
Yep.
And I turned that 5 bill into like 25 bill pretty easily just by, buying low, selling high like you do
Hmm.
before they nerfed all the taxes and all that
Yeah.
shit, which is insane. But anyway, so I had a healthy little chunk of money and I said, I'm going to just full on go into this FAC Wars thing. And I just applied to literally the very first corp that I saw on Amar FAC Wars side. Only because I was living in Amar. That's the only reason why I joined the Amar side.
It's a good reason with the
Yeah,
restrictions that they have. So.
exactly. And so Sazark, CEO of Arshad, which is our group right now, he saw my application and he said, "Yeah, sure, come on." And at that point, our Shad, the group Radiant Shadow, was just pretty. We were pretty sizable-ish, and we had a lot of support from Yondu, which is our friend Terran's alliance back then, and he had a really nice industrial infrastructure set up. Like they were pumping out ships. Literally, I could be like, "Yo, Terran, I want 6-foot stabbers, 6-foot tormentors," and they're delivered in my home system. So like that
That's
helped.
awesome.
That kind of infrastructure helped someone get in to FAC War, right? But at that point, we were just like mostly running around in like comets trying to like blob some big ship or something, see how many comets we could get on a battleship and take it down without losing like the entire fleet, right?
Yep.
But that's it. That's all that got me into it. And then once I finally things start clicking, you get in enough engagements, you start losing in the ships, but you're learning and you're learning and you're learning every time, right?
Yeah.
That's the snowball that happens, and that's it. But from there, it's all about where you take it, because a lot of people are fine just kind of being a member of a fleet and like getting their PvP fix and kind of moving on and doing some other stuff. But I was hungry I wanted more, I wanted to like push and push and push myself. So I've been just progressively getting sweatier, for lack of a better term, in the PvP, if that makes sense. Like bigger ships, bigger kills, better strategies, better fits, just trying to push our group further and further.
That's the way to do it. That is awesome. And that's, I kind of feel the same exact kind of thing. It's, it's as you get into PvP, you just continue to get hungrier and hungrier and hungrier. It's the billion-ish a billion-ish kill is no longer like, oh my god. It's like, okay, I'm looking for that 10 billion-isk. I'm looking for the pod that has 20 billion-isk inside of it now. And
yeah, exactly. Well, and it's cool because our group has actually shrunk over time, because it kind of died for a while, and then like I was in Wormholes for a while, and then like I was deployed in Vale for a while with like Northern Coalition and stuff, and then Saz, who had been out of the game for a while, our CEO, came back at the same time that I kind of came back from a break, and I said, "Hey man, let's get this Arshad thing like going again." And then we got a couple newer people to come in, and like since then we've just been doing our same thing. We live in our home system. We just do our small gang thing, and like five dudes for us is a lot in a fleet. Honestly, like we've kind of grown a little bit recently, but we're smaller, I think, than we were when I was first learning, actually.
Yeah, because when you're first learning was during almost the heyday of faction warfare, if I remember correctly from my monthly reports that I've been doing. And I like the first one that we did, we went over like the whole war zone and what it was like over the years. And man, there was just murder happening every day around 2000. I think in 2012 or 2013 or something like that. It was just insane how much murder was happening.
And I might have been misleading in my wording of the time frames. I've been I can actually I'm in game. I can look at when I very first joined Arshad here. Hold on a second.
Double check too to see when when all the super murdering was happening.
Okay, so I actually joined Arshad originally in 2019. So not that long ago.
Okay.
So I've only been like hardcore PvPing for like maybe what has it been? Probably let's be generous and say 2 years. Let's say 2 years I've had some idea of what I was doing.
Okay. So a little bit earlier than you've been playing for about 10 years now.
Off and on. Mostly PvE for a long time.
You built up your treasure chest, and then you got into the faction warfare PvP, which is a great way of doing it.
And having game knowledge of like ammos and ships, and that helps. That helps a lot. Jumping in from nothing into FAC War is like going into the deep end, right?
Yeah.
Head first.
There's some money you can make in faction warfare, depending. Amar, I know, has been hit pretty hard, and Kaldari were hit pretty hard with the tier 1 status for a long time.
A long time, yeah.
And Galente are feeling that now too, and and that can. it's something that I think tier 2 is where you can make some pretty decent ISK, and tier 3 and tier 4 are just ridiculous. Like the massive amount of LP you get for running a novice is, I mean, it's basically, I think at tier 3 you're basically talking about almost, it's like 175 million ISK, or 100, or sorry, 17 million ISK for 10 minutes of your time if you're just trading into a faction ship, your LP into faction ships. So
very worth it. Very worth it at that point.
Yeah, but when you have that, 0.0 starts looking a lot nicer and cushier on making some ISK with no effort whatsoever, whereas you got to really look out for PvP. But it's one of the reasons why I like faction warfare, is you make a little bit of ISK on the side while looking for PvP.
Right, and that's what draws a lot of people to it. Originally, I think you kind of hear like, oh, you can learn PvP and like sort of be self-sustaining in the fact that you're getting some kind of a return for your time. And you had a lot of good interaction with OPEC about this exact thing, where it's like we should try. CCP should try to make that tier system way less like all over the place. It's like you're either extremely penalized and there's no point in even flexing, right, from a money standpoint, or you're just making like fat stacks of cash from sitting an empty ship in a highly contested system. It just doesn't make any sense.
I think that it leads itself to being more about how do I manipulate the war zone so that I can get, a bunch of mad cash for the MR, and then as soon as that, starts drying up because of the massive amount of supply that I just put into the system, I'm going to switch over to the MR or to the Minmatar, and then we'll just boost that all the way up and start. And there seems to be a lot of manipulation that's happening rather than being straight on just a war between two factions.
Right, and that's part of EVE being just that kind of special game where the meta game is so
strong in EVE.
We all know there's a lot of like shadow agents in the background pulling strings, and like people owning like mass fleets of bots and just farming and like flipping the war zone on a whim and like market manipulation and all that stuff. But it also kind of points me to another thing I wanted to say, which was that I was privileged to come into FAC War with my treasure chest, as you said, like my coffers full, so that I could whelp ships indiscriminately and not worry too much, right? Because I've never personally, the money in FAC War was never a drive. It's nice, but I'll often be sitting on like 4 million in LP and just not even thinking about it because I just don't.
Yeah, I since I got back to faction warfare, I still haven't turned in my LP, and I had a ton of LP left over from the other times that I've been in faction warfare, and I just use my own coffers, like you said. Like I built up a treasure chest and now I I'm nearing my 40s, so it's like, oh, I actually, like, if I work for 1 hour, it's like $30-40 that I make, and in EVE it's just hard to find an activity that will ever be able to match that. So sometimes I just bust out my wallet now and I'm just like, what's $20? I don't care. Like, it's a bunch of money in game. So
well, and I personally, I don't have any problem with people spending money like real money to buy Plex and things like that. That's totally cool. Like, everybody wants to play their game their way, but I personally don't. I just sub my account. I never buy any like Plex. But we in our shad, when we're not fighting our lovely war targets, we are very versed in ganking. Ooh. We kill a lot of very, very expensive ships that come into Clog. We have a little saying of like, another idiot wanders into Clogori to die. Like, we kill probably like, a conservative estimate is we kill probably 4 blingy T3 cruisers a week.
Oh, wow.
Because like our main core group is 100% sustained ISK-wise from just ganking people. Like,
wow,
we definitely toe the line, and
is that a small group of people too doing the ganking? Are you're doing?
Sometimes it's just me. Like, I'll be honest, I tend to be the main kind of like. I don't want to say that I'm better than any of my guys. All my guys are really good, okay? But I tend to be the dude who's hunting, always hunting, and I've got like the strategies that seem to work. Like I have my 2 accounts. I use just one other account, right? And I'm like, a T3 comes in, I scan him down. He gets chased out. Okay, I'm logging this alt off. I got this other one coming in. I'm putting like a recon in his sight. I'm telling people to log off. We're log off trapping people. Like we get a bit sweaty about it because that's our income, right?
Yep.
We don't we plex as a means to get content. We do not plex because of the mechanics of Fat War. Like I'm gonna be straight up about that.
The Terran is saying that he never hunts, he just whores so that he can look good for you.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I put in a lot of the hunting work just because that's what I like to do, And
so
I don't want to.
Is this low sec ganking that you're doing?
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like around our home system. Like, I'm sure you know of Amamaki.
Yep, I'm familiar with that one.
We live very, very close to Amamaki in Klagori. I've lived here for forever. In fact, before I was back in our shed, I was in a pirate group in Klagori. And all we did really was kill mission runners all the time, right? And that was like that kind of introduced me to.
That's an interesting place that you have then. So you've got a low sec system. I'm guessing that is it people already in low sec, or are they coming from high sec because their mission pushes them in? Or I'm sorry, coming from high sec and pushing them into low sec.
It's usually like wormholers who come through a hole, or people running Fat War missions, or people scanning around, but
okay.
like there's just we love our small gang PvP. We want to grid fight and stuff. We want to fight outnumbered, which we do a lot. That's what gets us going. But at the end of the day, if something blingy comes into Klagori, I want it dead, and my guys know that too.
That's awesome.
And they want it dead too. That we breed that kind of mindset in our group. Like we want to be ruthless, but fair to our like main war target enemies, but completely just only ruthless to the PvE runners that come in because that's our money.
Hell okay. Yeah, man. Yeah, if you're gonna PvE it up and you're gonna bling the hell out of yourself for PvE, you deserve to feel the wrath of Losec when you're there. So.
Right. Well, and we spend a lot of time doing some like kind of weird like. We come up with weird plans because we're so small, right? And like, if we shout out to our buddies in Locals Primary or something like, "Hey, I got this guy tackled. Come," right? Then we can field some bigger stuff by proxy through our friends, But most of the time, it's like I'll give you an example. This is one of the most hilarious fights we've ever had. Was yesterday. A frenemy of ours, actually, a Galente, he called out that there was a paladin.
Ooh.
And I actually recognized the guy's name because he had been in Klagori once in a nightmare, and we tried and failed to kill him and fed him a few ships. So we were like, how are we going to kill this guy? Not only is he far from our staging, but he's also like decent, and marauders are insane to fight, right?
Yes.
Everybody knows that right now. They're very insane to fight. I just got my first marauder and dropped it in a fight and got a dread dropped on me, and I just about shit myself, to be honest. But
escalation.
Yeah, and so we're like, okay, well, Paladin has the worst tracking of all of the Marauders, pretty much, right? So we're like, we'll get like a Ramjag and a Claw and whatever small stuff, and we'll just catch it and we'll deal with it from there. Right?
Yep.
But like, we don't know how to kill this dude.
Hold it down.
We're gonna catch it. We're gonna catch him, and it worked. We caught him. We brought probes, and we kind of figured that this guy's hubris would get him in trouble, right? Because we tried to kill him before, and he took the fight. He lets himself get scanned down, right? So we bring the ships in, and we get under his guns, and we start defanging, and I like brought a Naga on my main to sit out at 150 outside of his range and just plink at him. And I'm not joking when I say that it was 45 minutes from the time that we tackled him to the time that he died. And our buddies were forming up a full-on like fleet with Logi to come kill him because we just couldn't break his tank. But we eventually brought a second, like a battleship with cruise missiles, and it was just enough to like push him over the edge, or he gave up. We're not sure.
It's like, okay, you guys have caught you kept me here for 40 minutes.
I had a headache,
I've
dude.
got
I'm dual boxing a claw and like trying to kill drones, and I got my Naga sitting there and stuff, and all my other like all my corp mates and stuff are like sitting there also under his guns, and we're trying to like he's pulling his drones every 2 seconds, right? They're out, and I'm like,
no.
drones out, kill the drones, and then like, he pulls them, and it's like over and over and over, right? So it was just a long thing, but that's the kind of stuff that we do when we're not, trying to fight like on a packed grid or something in an open, and that's our money. That's how we make our money, and it just sharpens you up, right?
That's
It sharpens
beautiful,
your
man.
skills.
That is something that I don't hear very much, is that the way that we make money is by PvPing and looting. I mean, it's very similar to, old style. I think pirates used to do that a lot more, where they would let them go to, and charge them a bunch of ISK to let them go. But it's kind of cool that you're almost bringing back pirating in a different degree of like, we're doing this for your loot. Like we're blowing up your ship for the loot, and that's super cool, because truthfully in PvP I don't look at loot at all. I don't even care. Every once in a while it'll be like, like during the Halloween fest we had a few things that kind of dropped that were like, oh my god, like it all dropped because it's Halloween, so we get to have it all. We could finally get that A-type micro warp drive that's on that cruiser, or whatever. But a lot of the times it just gets thrown into a station, and I'm just like, oh wait a minute, I have billions of ISK just laying around everywhere. But it would be smarter to use that as a way to fuel a corporation, and that's kind of cool that you're doing that. Logan says there's nothing better than an old school loot swipe. Swipe the loot, then dip.
Well, and shout out to Masinko, because him and I especially are like, we're on it with the loot, and he's on it more than me, because a lot of times I'm like more focused on what's going on. He's ready to scoop that loot, right? Like we're ready, and we're like, scoop the loot, get the hell out of here. Like, but we don't want to. I don't want to portray it as like we would snake someone else's loot or something. Like if let's say we were in a fight, a big grid fight with like our allies in localist primary or something, we ain't going in and trying to swipe loot and hide it from them and stuff like that. We're not about that. Our corp, like I said, we're stern but fair, kind of like with the headmistress style. Right? Like, you might not like it, but we're pretty fair, right? And we honor all 1v1s. We would honor all ransoms. We don't do any kind of scummy stuff. And we actually have a very like, if one of my guys, if I found out or Saz found out that one of our guys did not honor a 1v1, it would be a pretty serious thing. Like I would consider definitely kicking them from the corp, because it's just not a kind of. It's not something that we would allow, and like we fight a couple of Russian groups.
It's kind of like the honor amongst thieves things, we're all a bunch of scummy assholes who just want to murder people, but we're not really scummy, we're just assholes.
We're reasonable guys. We're reasonable guys. In fact, we've had them a couple times. They're like, post your Discord. We'll post our Discord in local. Come into our chat. Yeah. We don't care. Come on.
It is one of those things that's really interesting being a streamer, which I don't do any delay on my streams. Having this show and just the openness of my, like, I mean, literally the rules in my Discord are be cool, like, and party on, like, because I'm not all, I'm about, I want you to have fun and to relax. But yeah, if somebody goes, but that rule of be cool and party on kind of also leaves it up to that, if you're being a dick and shit, then we're just gonna boot your ass. Like we're not looking for drama and bullshit, and it works out really well. The only reason why we actually locked this room is because we just want to make sure that because sometimes random people just jump into our comms and just be like, hey, what's going on here?
Right.
Like, we're in a show, go away.
right. Well, sorry if I'm ranting on too. I get too passionate about the loot, man. I want that loot, dude.
I love ranting on this show. That's one of the key things that when I bring on somebody, it's like if they can just rant and rant and rant, I'm just like, oh my god, this is the greatest. Please keep on talking.
Oh, you're welcome.
So this has been awesome. So one of the things that if you want to go on a rant about is that I'm kind of looking, and I've been kind of poking everybody that I had to try to bring onto the show here, is what is it that you would like to see changed in faction warfare? If you had like the ability to take over the development strategy of faction warfare, being inside of the the battlefield itself and seeing the different things, is there any specific changes that you would like to see come to faction warfare, whether they're, grandiose or small changes?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pretend that like I'm as much of a mental giant on this topic as like some of like Savros and stuff from Logos Primary has like a huge write up about what should change, and most of it I 100% agree with. OPEC talked a lot about it on that last interview, and I think if you wanted to do something real simple, what seems simple to me, I don't know, I'm not a coder or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but make the rats point you in the plex. Super simple.
Yeah.
Super simple. Add a little risk. Add a little bit of risk, to the farming. Change the tier system. Yeah, I think you hit it right on the nail right on the head with how you said like it should be like max like minus 50%, and then like max plus 150% or whatever on like how much LP you get. Right now, what is it? It's just an insane differential between the high tier 5
It's
and
like
tier 1.
negative 50% at tier 1 and 225% at tier 5.
Okay.
And so,
See, I don't even know.
Which,
I care about the
when you're making all of your money off of killing people, the tier system stops being as much of a problem for you. But I think that overall, it still influences your actions and what's going on, and
it more influences too the newer,
right. The people
players
around you and the newer players that are coming into it, seeing that it's that they're in tier 1 is just it can be rough for them.
I think kind of. Yeah, incentivizing play when you're losing would be a great start. However, whatever form that takes,
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that, I don't really know. I don't really know how to push players into FAC War. We saw kind of a surge of new activity in our war zone after the big war ended in Null.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's mostly just the people who were already here that went on to their other characters or whatever that were already in their null blocks where they make their money and participating in that big kind of once in an Eve lifetime war.
Yes.
So it pushes now that that's kind of over. There's been some more people. There's been some fresh blood. We've seen some new corpse on both sides. Mostly new corpse on Mimitar's side. It seems like.
Yeah, they've been boosting up a lot lately. I've been watching.
They have a lot of numbers
ago.
lately. Yeah, and I think there definitely is something to be said about reducing the veteran toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
Towards like newer players. It's easy in Eve to get emotional, and like I've been accused a lot of being like a jerk and stuff, but I feel personally it's like a lot of times I'm just reacting to what other people are saying, and I think that most people who have ever flown with me or the people who I've like fought extended over a long period of time will just say no, he's just explaining this perspective. If you come at us in our group and say like, hey, you guys only blob, you only do this, you only do that, etc., etc.,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say like, no, man, listen, I'm gonna lay it out. Look, this is how it is. You see that a lot in every group where someone gets blobbed and they're like, oh, you need 20 dudes to kill a Tristan, you're trash. We've all seen it, right? We've all heard it.
Yep.
But then as an FC you have to say, which of my guys
do I
tell to sit on the side? Yeah, it's just not how Eve goes.
Right. No, and that's something that I always find it really interesting when people complain in Eve. A lot of the times what I hear them complaining is that you're not playing Eve the way that I want you to play Eve so that I can beat you. And it's like some of it is solid, like, oh, you could have just brought one Tristan in to fight my Tristan, but that's not Eve.
Yeah.
Like, that isn't the way that this goes, and I've got a fleet, you don't. You put yourself in a vulnerable situation. You could have left, like, if you were paying attention or knew what you were doing, watching D-scan and stuff. I mean, getting away from a blob in faction warfare is one of the easiest things to do. There are no bubbles. At this point in time, there's no rat holding you down, that even any PvE or almost anywhere else is going to have to deal with a point being on them at some point in time in their PvE career. If you PvE all day long in faction warfare only doing flexes, you'll never see a point go on you. If you
Right.
go into defensive plexing, there's nothing
There's
shooting
literally
at
no
you.
risk, period, in deflexing. Just do an empty ship and make free money. Yeah.
Right. And so, especially in faction warfare is when I'm like, I'm not going to play the game that you want to play, that you want me to play. I'm going to do stuff that is fun for my group, and I'm sorry that you got the short end of the stick here. But there's plenty of ways for that short end of the stick to not even appear for you, because you could have not engaged, you could have gone off and done something else, you could pay attention, you could be at your keyboard. There's a lot of stuff that seems to get thrown around where it's just being pissy and just being mad that I more often than not, I don't see it actually being like you've caught me fairly and I wanted to fight. It was more along the lines of like, I really wanted to murder you guys with an advantage that was so strong for me that I'm mad that you didn't allow me to keep that advantage. And I have it all the time that my advantage goes away. I thought that I was, I'm hot drop, or I'm like, gate camping, and it's just prey after prey, or it's prey after prey coming in, and all of a sudden there's a Sino that it pops, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
There's a counter to everything, right? And there's definitely been a lot of times where like we are like actively trying to gank something with overwhelming force, and we get hard countered.
Yep.
Right. It just happens, and it happens to everyone. And we might be as a fleet in some really nasty stuff because we're actually actively hunting someone in something that's nasty itself. And you might just get unlucky and jump a gate, and we're sitting there, and you're definitely going to die. It's not personal,
Right.
And that's even a nutshell. And I will say that to our credit, and something that I like about our group specifically, and this is something that kind of I think Saz definitely was the original starter of this kind of tradition, but most of the guys in our group are people that died to our group. Right?
Yeah, I love that. That's one of the best people that I picked up way back in the day when I was doing X Meta and building up that corporation. I met this guy called Killer Trout. And so I used to live in Hain. Some people might know about Hain. It's this really weird spot in Galente space where it's a low-sec system surrounded by two high-sec systems, that those two high-sec systems only lead into low-sec systems. And so it's this really weird, closed off... Yeah, really weird closed-off section of low-sec, where it's one system of low-sec and two high-sec systems, one that doesn't even have any stations in it. And then from there, it's Parts and Obalu, which is it's two jumps of low sec to get to high sec, and then it's just pure low sec the other direction. And so he came in there, he's ratting around, and his name is Killer Trout, and I'm like seeing this guy, my buddy hits me up, he's like, hey, there's somebody running missions in a Myrmidon. And I was like, oh, cool, jump in your Proteus. I jumped into a Proteus or something like that. And so we go out, we scan him down, and we blow him up. And he just, the first thing he goes is, how did you do that? And can you teach me how to do that?
Yeah, dude.
How did you scan me down? And this guy went on to become one of the premier pilots of X Meta during that time, where he invented what we call today the cockbag thrasher, or at least we feel like he invented it to us. I'm sure that the cockbag has been around for a long time in different names, but it's basically all guns, all artillery, the biggest artillery you can throw onto it, Tech 2, a micro warp drive. And sometimes if you want the super cock, you drop the micro warp drive and put 2 sensor boosters instead of 1 on it. So that you
I've definitely died to this kind of a fleet before. So
yep, and it's just a micro warp drive, a point, and a sensor booster, and damage in the lows, and then the rigs are like damage with maybe some speed on there to a small degree, but yeah, and he would just roam around high sec with this thing and just murder frigates after frigate while flying around in Keldari space, just knowing the mechanics, knowing how long you could sit on a gate and wait, and just following people and going to belts, because apparently a lot of people in faction warfare back in the day were also belt miners with their faction warfare characters, which was always an interesting But yeah, so some of the best people that we've picked up over the years, because that's just one example of multiple that we've had, where you murder somebody and then they're just like, "How'd you do that? What can you teach me the
Yeah.
way?" And those are the best people. Those are the ones that really get in and just love the aspect of what we're doing, because they were on the other end of it and now they want to be the person murdering people.
Yeah, and I mean that's supposed to be how it is in this kind of game, right? All the people that love this game for what it is know that it's really important to kind of, if anyone I kill were to message me and be like, "Yo, what's your fit? How did you do that? What can you tell me? Like, how can you help me?" I'm going to do it 100%.
Absolutely. I'll pay you back for the entire ship plus
Yeah,
more. I'll give you
I think
tons of
we've all
shit.
done
Like,
that, right? We've all sent ISK back to someone that we felt bad for killing, and then been like, "Dude, here, let me give you a fit for that ship you were flying that's better," right?
yep. No,
And
absolutely.
when people come into our home system in Klagori, if you're in a Tengu, rest in peace, dude. But if you're in a Rifter, you better bet that if it's just me in system, I'm gonna undock like a Rifter and come fight you. I'm
There
not
you
gonna
go.
slide like a faction frig on you. That is one thing that I do personally, and it's a partly like there's no challenge, right,
hmm
in just seal clubbing in a better ship. So it's much better for me, and it's better for them if I just ship down to what they're flying, right?
Yep. No, and that's one thing that I would like to see changed in faction warfare, is to create like a beginner plex that doesn't allow for
Yeah,
the overpowered ship, the faction and pirate ships that just decimate T1 ships. There are some counters and some play that you can have in there that a T1 ship can definitely beat a faction or pirate frigate. It's
yeah.
possible.
I killed a
It's
Dramiel and a Kestrel like a day ago.
right, but it's
Yeah, it happens.
really, really rough, especially when you're a new
It takes
player.
knowledge. Yeah, it
Right,
takes knowledge, and it takes maybe just a little element of them fucking up.
right.
That helps
Yep,
too.
that helps a lot.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's
but I,
it's
I agree with you. I think more variance in the plexes and things like that more variety, more options can only be helpful, right?
yeah, no,
Could only be helpful.
yep. But yeah, it's an interesting thing about Eve, is that one of the things that I always found to be kind of weird is that when I first began, I didn't understand tier eating. Like, drinking tears was something that I didn't quite understand, but as I started getting into it, like, it's really weird. I normally feel like in real life I wouldn't do this to people, but like in Eve, when somebody's crying to me and just yelling at me about how horrible a person I am for murdering them, it just like, it feeds me a little bit, and I'm like, oh, I like this. That's fine. Go ahead and cry and
Yeah,
yell and scream at me about all this stuff.
it's a validation of its own sort, right? It's like, man, I killed that good dude so well that he's mad at me.
So when I did ganking for money, we did it in high sec, which,
Hmm.
oh my god, the tears. And
Yeah, I'm
I
sure.
I feel bad to a certain, like, the real life me is kind of like like Frozen Fallout's an asshole. Like Josh looks at Frozen Fallout and sees like a complete and utter dick, mainly because of my time doing high sec ganking, because we would just sit in Dodixie with a scanning ship, and it would just be me and one other buddy, sometimes just me, sometimes just him. We'd take out the tornado, and just fit it up very similar to a cockbag setup, and then just keep on scanning and looking for that industrial 5 that just undocks with
Yeah,
5 billion ISK worth of stuff in it, and it's just like, okay, this is gonna be an easy kill. Let's hope that it goes to my gate. Like,
right.
and
And
then
see,
when
that's something I've personally never really gotten into, and our corps never really gotten into the whole high sec piracy thing, which is very lucrative. I know it's very lucrative. I've been got by that before. I actually lost, like, way long ago, a shuttle, literally just a shuttle that had, because I was an idiot, like eight, 8 or 9 or 10 faction BPCs in it, like faction ship BPCs up to like Vindicator, and like, I mean, it was like probably, I mean, I want to say maybe 4 bill of
hmm
blueprint in that shuttle, and it got smart bombed by them all around the Gita gate. It's just like, oh wow, That was dumb.
No, I remember the first time that happened to me was I was getting a faction toss BPO to go develop it in Hain. So I went to Jeddah, took a shuttle, and I was like, oh, nobody's gonna try and gank a shuttle, so I'll just autopilot home with this and go get some dinner or something. And so I was like just autopiloting through HiSec, and I come back and I'm, in station, and I'm like, what happened here? I'm like, oh my god, of course they're gonna like, they're gonna shoot a shuttle if it's filled with, it's like a billionist or something like that.
Well, and the hope is you only make that mistake once, right?
Right.
That's the hope. That's what you're going for.
Or you be like my old CEO who would take his cloaky ship through 0.0 with all of the corporation's BPCs and BPOs, and I think he's done it like 3 times, at least 2 times. One time he fell asleep and then got his ship blown up because he just fell asleep while I was flying through 0.0 trying to get all of his shit out, or shit to 0.0. And then the other time it was actually spectacular because we were at Gen Con, the big gaming convention here, and in Indianapolis, and so we're sitting in the convention hall. He's got his laptop out and he's got like 15 people around him, like watching him play EVE Online, and he's got his hauler hauling out shit to 0.0, and so like with a crowd of like 15 people around him, he gets caught by a gate camp and gets blown up. It was just like, oh man.
Yeah, it just happens.
Awesome. So before we kind of wrap things up here, I want to give some time to you to give you some time to talk about anything that you want to promote, any shout outs that you want to give, and just kind of give you a spotlight as to anything that you want to talk about here before we wrap on up here.
Yeah, sure. So I guess one thing I want to say is like, we need more pilots going out and fighting outnumbered. Right, we need more small gang activity in FAC War. So anyone on either side watching this right now, Mimitar, Amar, whatever, go out in a small gang of 2 or 3 and try to fight 10 dudes. Do it all the time. Seriously. It will make you better, it will push you, and you'll have way more fun. Okay? Like, I know there's going to be some people on the Mimitar side watching this and just thinking, this guy's so full of it, but look inward. Think about how many times I fought you guys 10v1. Strive for that. That's what makes you better at the game. That's what makes our Shad fun, is we take the outnumbered fight, and we are recruiting. We're small. If you want to be a part of a small, very tight-knit but like punching up kind of group, Radiant Shadow, Black Lancers, Empyrean Edict, come join us. If you want to be a part of a larger group with better infrastructure and stuff, that's cool too. Go join Locals Primary, because there's a lot of awesome guys over there too. And shout out to like Masenko, Arch, Kale, Junko, Saz, Terran, Seraph, all you guys. Nitsu, I mean, our guys are the best that I've ever played with in any game. They're my friends, and especially in lockdown when I was like really getting deep into EVE, like these are my buddies, dude. I couldn't pick a better group of people to play the game with, so I love you guys.
That's awesome, dude. That's super awesome. Do you have a website at all for your corporation, or anywhere any links that we can put? At the very least, we'll get your kill board in there and stuff. But if you got any links or anything, definitely give them on over to me, and I'll make sure I get that into the show notes as well.
Yeah, cool. We don't have a website or anything, but you could post our Discord.
Okay, cool.
Our Discord, we have an open door policy on that too, and in fact, we actually have a heretics role for our enemies if they want to join. So.
Oh, cool. Well, you might see a heretic of Frozen Fallout in there to come and just hang out and see and shoot the shit with you guys. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Definitely, if we got time down the line, definitely would like to have you back on. It's been great talking with you. It's always great to get the other side of the coin and to kind of humanize the enemy. I shouldn't be doing this, but I am, because I love humans. And I love this game.
Right.
And truthfully, this is all it's all about fun, and here we just want to like bring out the human aspect of, these are real people that are fighting. We're not here, we're not bots,
There's a lot of people with a little flashy star next to their name that I will invite into my fleet, 100%, and they know who they are.
That's awesome. Yeah, and there's been a lot of team ups over the years that I've been in faction warfare of a Keldari and Galente or Amar and Mimitar or any combination that you can think of there, going up against pirates. Teaming up to go fight the third-party pirates that are out there happens so often.
Yeah, it's like the alien invasion on Earth, right? And all the nations come together to fight it. And
absolutely.
World Peace happens for a little bit.
Awesome. Well, if you're interested in joining up with the war effort, definitely check out the Empyrean Edict. You can also check out Local as Primary as well. And of course, the Golden Age stories. We're always recruiting. We're looking for, if you got an alt, your main, you're a spy, come on over and spy. That's fine. We don't care. We just want to have fun. And I hope that this gives you some insight into some faction warfare, gives you some insight into the different people that are playing faction warfare. If you'd like to keep up with the news, you can always check out our podcast that we have here, the Federation Frontline Report. You'll find that on pretty much all the podcasting platforms out there, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, all that kind of stuff. We're out there. You can also find us on YouTube. We have the video version of our podcast on YouTube there at Golden Age Stories. And if you have any news that you'd like to put onto the show, anything that you want to have us talk about, you can always email Frozen Fallout in-game, or you can email us at federationfrontlinereport@gmail.com. If you want to be interviewed by us as well, if you're interested in that, just hit me up. Truthfully, if you're inside or outside of faction warfare, I'm always down to do interviews. I love interviewing people. It's been something of a passion that I've had with EVE Online, especially has been giving me some really great people to talk to. So definitely hit me on up. I'd love to have you on the show. We'll probably force you to talk about faction warfare a little bit, but if you're not already in it, so... Awesome. Well, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Thank you very much for coming on to the show here, and have a great night.